Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
How you doing, Peter? Happy
George.
Wednesday.
What's up, George?
Not too much.
I've missed you.
Not too much. I've missed you too. It's been a little bit of time. Yeah. This is a video from Logan Paul, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, so we'll get into it.
Why do you still come to the gym?
For the same reason as why am I having breakfast today. I had breakfast yesterday, I had breakfast 10 years ago. Why am I still having breakfast? Right? It's like
It's part of your day.
Why am
It's
I
his
still
habit.
sleeping?
Right.
I slept 20 years ago.
Part of
I
his
slept 10
routine.
years ago.
Part of his
I'm
routine
sleeping
for
every
success.
single night.
It's so rooted.
It's rooted in his
law.
DNA.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
it's the same as with training.
That's why we do
Training is
anything
part
over and
of
over and
my
over
life.
again.
It's that simple.
It is that
Nothing will
simple.
ever change until I die.
Right.
I will be working out and I will be having
Sure.
a great time in the gym and I will be getting the pump.
He loves it.
And
It's good for him. It's part of his recipe for success. Man, we see this no matter who you are and what you do. Successful people have their routines and they have their formulas that they do and they carry out. So here you've got Logan Paul, Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about working out and why continue to work out. Because it's what I do, man. It's what I do every day in and day out. I got to work out. I know people like that with fitness. I know runners. I know people who work out a lot, who CrossFit a lot, who just have to get a pump and adrenaline going every day, first thing in the morning, religiously. Like they could not do anything else, but they'll do that. Yeah. You know, and it's part of who they are on a cellular level and their DNA. And it doesn't change. Yeah. And it's not like something that they can just decide not to do. It's not like something, I mean, Arnold says, look, I had breakfast yesterday. I had breakfast the day before. I had breakfast 10 years ago. It's what I do. It's who I am. It's ingrained in me. And that is what you want to strive for when you're developing habits to become successful, to build your business, to build your brand. You know, it's those habits, it's the persistence and the consistency that occurs over enough repetition and enough time that it becomes completely natural, automatic without thinking about it. These guys don't have a choice to not go to the gym and work out. Successful people in business who are working to build their brand or to build their net worth don't have a choice. They do the things that they know are going to make them successful. For them, it might be working out early in the morning too. It might be working out while reading disclosures from public companies on the treadmill at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. because when else are you going to get it done? For me, it's making contact with my team, continuing to build and develop and maintain relationships. I call key people in my work life all the time. I never want to be far enough away or having gone too long a time without speaking to so many people, so I'm always on the phone. Even if it's just leaving a message or sending a text, like you got to do that stuff. It's part of who I am, it's in my DNA, and if I don't do it, I'm going to stop being me. I'm going to stop delivering the Peter Siegel thing that helps it all work, and it's part of my success formula. So everybody's got this stuff. What's your things? What do you do that you repeat every day in and day out because you know it's good for you, because you know it's going to help you in the long run, because you know you're going to be successful if you do it? What are those things? Leave a comment below.
All right, and last time we had you read the tweet, so if you want to do that again, I feel like that worked nicely.
Yeah,
I like that.
okay.
So this is from Dave Ramsey.
Ugh. Oh, George, what a tweet. Dave, you give me Dave Ramsey stuff like you know I'm going to eat it for lunch. So Dave Ramsey's tweeting here, your teenager does not need a credit card. And you know I replied to that, right?
Did,
Like I
yeah.
follow him and then
Yeah.
I saw that and I replied.
Yeah.
I disagree completely. I mean, I disagree with a lot of what Ramsey says, most of what Ramsey says. But here's the deal with this tweet. Teenagers and everybody else needs financial education. They need tools, they need the practice, they need to be in the mix, deploying what they're learning in their financial education. There's no financial education anywhere unless you get it in the house as a young person from your parents. You don't learn it in school, you don't learn it in college, you don't learn it on the job anywhere. You sort of learn it by trial and error, going through your normal life with no one steering you or guiding you as to what's right or wrong. You have to sort of seek these people out and this information out on your own. if you're seeking out information from Dave Ramsey, I really caution you to also seek the opposing points of view, not only with financial education, but with anything in life, separate discussion. But let's say you're indexing towards Dave Ramsey and he's telling you kids don't need a credit card. Look, I disagree. I want to start teaching my kids about financial education and the way the world works financially early. I want them to understand what numbers on a check are and what a routing number is for a bank. And I want them to understand how credit works and what credit cards are and how they work, when to use them, when not to use them. You know, Dave Ramsey also tweeted this week about debt being bad. And there was a whole string and conversation about that. Look, all debt is not bad. Most consumer debt is bad, but business debt, a lot of it can be very good debt because it's typically tied to assets that throw off income that can support the debt. George, you've heard me talk about it a billion times. My head's going to explode. I don't want to get into it again today. But look, there's good debt and bad debt. With credit cards and kids, there's a right way and a wrong way. I don't want to ignore it and put my head in the sand and hope my kid's going to learn about a credit card from someone else. I don't want them to learn about credit cards from the commercials and the marketing and the advertising that the credit card agencies are putting out there. I want them to learn about credit cards from me. So that's why I choose to get involved with my kids' financial education and impart some financial education. They're not going to get it anywhere else. And if they do, it's going to be from sources that you're not going to approve of and like, or maybe won't be consistent with the messages that you would give your kids. So get involved, man. Seek out financial education, all types, and teach your kids. Make it a family thing. Do it together. You know, talk about it at the dinner table. Can you imagine? I'm 54 years old. If my parents had conversations around the dinner table about finances and banking and credit cards and investing when I was a kid, which they didn't, but if they did, man, it would be so incredible, be liberating. Imagine if you did that with your family, with your kids today, with all the craziness in the world, with all the income inequality that we talk about so much, with all the crazy things in politics that we talk about so much, with all the things during the pandemic and the government checks, and like we talk about all this stuff, but where's the education about it? It feels like we're complaining about it and we're not doing anything to overcome it or to learn about it. Please learn about this stuff. I'm not giving my kid a credit card at 7, but a little later on, they're going to have a credit card. I'm going to teach them why. I'm going to teach them how and when to use it. I'm going to teach them what it does when I pay the bill. They're going to do it with me, and they're going to understand how it all works. They're going to understand what interest rates are. They're going to understand what making interest payments are and what principal payments are. They're going to understand all that because I don't want them to get caught later on down the road signing up for all these financial products that they may or may not need because they read about it or saw a commercial on a show because they're on Netflix and they're being targeted in advertising and demographics and all that stuff. I mean, I want to be the one to teach my kids about financial education. Who's going to teach your kids? Who are you going to leave that up to? Come on.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, sounds good. Head over to the table?
Please, let's go, man.
Awesome. All right, welcome back to the table, Peter.
George, good to be back.
It's funny, even just like a gap of a week or two feels like a huge distance.
A long time.
Yeah, so many things happen in the world.
I speak to you more than I speak to almost anybody else in my life.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's not planned that way, and I'm not making a statement about how I feel about other people in my life, but the work that we do together requires lots of back and forth and collaboration and speaking.
No,
so
totally.
I feel like you're on the list of people that know me best.
Yeah, well, I feel honored. So to get into it, last week we talked about, or whenever we talked last, we talked about Biden getting into housing and really pursuing more supply for housing across the board.
It's the only, we've talked about that way more than just the last time that we spoke.
Of course, yeah.
Supply is what is everything. When you have, all right, let me set the stage here.
Yeah, sure.
When there's a shortage of anything, you need more supply of that thing.
Yep.
Period, end of discussion. It's science. It's an indisputable law of nature. If you have a lack of supply of water, you need more water. If you have a lack of supply of food, you need more food. We're talking about housing. I guess you're going to bring this up. So if you have a lack of supply of housing, you need more housing. Go ahead. What's your question?
Well, one key component of the White House's plan seems to be to increase to ease the barriers to prevent ADUs from being built, like accessory dwelling units.
The White House plan is really impressive for a couple different reasons.
Yeah.
One, it's a Democratic administration that's putting forth a plan to unrestrict and ease legislations and create new legislations to promote construction, to promote the creation of new housing supply. This we haven't seen before. Right. Usually it's regulate, restrict, price controls, set-asides, affordable housing requirements, not NIMBY, not in my backyard. I mean, usually it's been that for the past 50 years.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So totally. It's really impressive that now, all of a sudden, and it happens to be a Democratic administration, is saying, hey, we got to build more, and here's how we're going to do it. They want to lubricate the machine. They want to lift zoning restrictions and motivate states and counties to lift zoning restrictions. But they want people to build ADUs as well, because that's a simple thing that's right in front of them here and now that people can address.
Yeah, and that's what I was curious about. Like, I'm somewhat unfamiliar with ADUs. Like, what is that, and how does that play a role in the future of this housing?
So accessory dwelling units, we've heard this phrase most recently relating to California, how they upzone the entire state to allow for accessory dwelling units to be built on every single family property in the state, because California recognized they have a housing supply shortage, and it's something that they can do immediately to introduce new supply into their marketplace.
Totally.
So I applaud them for having done that. Here's where we are today. Fast forward a little bit. California is thinking that they can create maybe 7 or 8 or 900,000 additional units of housing simply by upzoning and allowing ADUs to be created on single-family lots. You've got the NIMBY people that are saying, whoa, we don't like this. We don't want apartments in the lot next to me, in the lot on this side of me, in the lot behind me. It's all this new density. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be taxation on our water system and electricity system. Like, no, not in my backyard. But you've got this other movement happening now, the YIMBY movement. Yes, in my backyard, saying, listen, this housing shortage is so screwed up, we got to do something. So yes, go ahead and build. So there's all sorts of new ways of thinking about housing and how to create housing. But these accessory dwelling units are something that's right in front of us. Towns and states can enact ADU laws to motivate and incentivize construction and building of new housing supplies. It's going to have an impact. It's not going to massively move the needle, but you got to do it. It's like part of the entire recipe of things that you have to do to really make a difference. So if California can introduce a bit of legislation that lubricates ADUs to come online, and every other state can do it, think about the numbers there. California's like 7 or 8 or 900,000 ADUs could possibly be built. Other dense states, the East Coast states, the coastal areas, if they were to do that as well, I'm sure each state would be, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. You add it all up, you're going to get close to maybe 5-6 million units of ADU units of housing just from implementing ADU zoning and upzoning and legislations. So no matter who you ask, and depending on the day of the week, when you're asking it, you'll hear that we have a shortage of housing anywhere from 5 to 11 million units of housing. The government will say that it's 1 million to 1.5 million. Let me tell you, it's not. So, if all of the states and counties were to hop on board like California did with upzoning for ADUs, you could see a rapid introduction of new supply into the marketplace, which would eat into that, what I say is anywhere from 5 to 11 million units that we are short of housing supply in our country. So that's one way to attack our supply shortage. The other way is other upzoning measures and legislative measures to lubricate the economic engines, to motivate and incentivize builders and developers to take risk, to sign personally on construction notes, to deploy capital and invest capital and construct housing of all types, all income levels, all product types, all price points. We need more of it, right?
Yeah, ask for every seat.
Governments can take those actions and kick this thing in the ass. ADUs it's really so easy to do that because you don't have to do anything except permit ADUs. Like, you don't have to bond anything or figure out money or just allow it.
Yeah,
right?
I think I had read that a big part of this is that it's something that the White House can do specifically and not have to rely on getting it through Congress. And so that makes things a lot easier to implement, obviously.
Look, we got to address the housing supply shortage. It's amazing, man. Yeah. All of a sudden, everyone's been waking up going, oh, we have to build more. Joe Biden's administrative plan, the states are upzoning. I mean, how long have we been talking about this, George?
At least a year.
I feel like they watch our podcast and now they're saying you got to build more supply.
Yeah, wouldn't that
Do you
be
feel
great?
that way? Because I feel that way.
I feel that way too. I think it would be great to have us on CNN and just tell the world.
Well, we have our content date stamped, so we can see when I've been talking about it with you.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things, but I really like being right.
Yeah, I hear that. Even while the pandemic has let up, college enrollment continues to go down.
Yeah.
And with the exception of famous colleges, Harvard and Yale, they're fine. But in general,
they're brands.
Yeah, in general, everything is going down. Do you see this as a cause for concern, or is this more just a natural evolution that has to happen?
A concern for what? For who?
Yeah.
If I were the universities, I'd be concerned because universities are businesses, and if their enrollment's going down, then their customers are going, their customer counts are going down, and their sales and revenues are going down.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the board of a university, which I was for 13 years, I would be concerned. Mm-hmm. But as a consumer, as a member of Joe Public, I'm not concerned for the universities. I mean, look where we are now. It's got a different return on investment scenario than it did 20 and 30 and 40 years ago. When I went to college, George, and my peers and my older brothers and my parents before me, it was a choice that you would make to become more employable, to become more attractive to employers, to earn a higher salary. Now the world is changed in such a manner where if you want to be financially successful, you no longer have to go to college to become financially successful. So now all the people that were going to college to become financially successful, maybe they're thinking twice, and I think they are thinking twice because you're telling me the enrollment number's down. We read about it and hear about it all the time. People will still choose to go to college for the social experience, for the gap of time, like when you're 18 to 21, where you don't really have experience yet, you don't really know what you want to do yet, you have to figure yourself out. College can be really good for that. There's a lot of people that go to college for those reasons. Some people are forgoing college altogether and they're just getting busy with working. Some 18-year-olds know what they want to get experience in and what they want to work at. God bless them. If that's you, go out and gain the experience. Experience in the field, way more valuable than a college degree if you're going to be in a certain industry and a track you're going to be on. I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned for humanity. I'm not concerned for our society that maybe college enrollment is down, therefore we're going to be dumber. I don't think that at all. Look, the Harvards, the Yales, the Penns, the Princetons, they're always going to have their customer base. These guys are the elite brands, and people are always going to want to attend these colleges. I tell you what, I went to a small, at best, mid-sized university, like 4,000 or 5,000 people, undergrad. It's not going to be the same proposition that it used to be. I'll tell you what else I'm concerned about business-wise is these small liberal arts colleges. Kenyon and Sarah Lawrence and all these small liberal arts colleges that are all over the Northeast and elsewhere. The opportunities that are available to you with a liberal arts degree are fewer and fewer and fewer. What's hot today in today's world? Engineering, science, entrepreneurship, programming, coding, computers, right? That's where the high-ticket employment is. Being employed as a teacher or these are important jobs, don't get me wrong, but to get a liberal arts degree because you don't really know what you want to do, and then you come out of a 4-year college that's expensive. They're all 60, 70 grand, these liberal arts colleges. And then 4 years and it's 300 grand when it's all said and done. And then you don't really know what you want to do, but you have a liberal arts degree. It's challenging. It's challenging to stick out in the crowd. It's challenging to be desirable on paper, marketing yourself with a liberal arts degree. So I'm concerned for those that get liberal arts degrees, and I'm concerned for the small liberal arts colleges. I think they're going to have a tough time surviving. And the poets of the world and the I don't know what I'm going to do in the world, and the people that want some of these soft careers. I call them soft careers because it's not engineering and science. Yeah. They're always going to want to go to these liberal arts schools, but they're declining.
Well, I think
sure.
the key there is the ROI has changed so much. Yadon Israel, he said he's now become a very successful editor at, I think, Random House now, but he would always say we're paying $40,000 a year, which is cheap now, but the $40,000 a year for tuition and only gaining $2,000 worth of networking in the cafeteria. And so he went in and really focused on, I'm going to rub shoulders and make sure I make connections. And most people are not going in thinking like that. They're just going in, taking the classes.
Yeah.
And then you come out with, $2,000 worth of an ROI and you spent $90,000. It's crazy.
Tell you what, College is a great idea if you go to a college and you're paying 50, 60, 70 grand, whatever it is a year.
Yeah.
You do that for 4 years and you come out and you can make 150,
Yeah.
250, 400,000 a year. Like, then it's a decent ROI.
Totally.
But you know what's not a good ROI? And it's most scenarios, most cases now, is you go into these colleges, you're paying 50, 60, 70 grand a year. You come out of college and you're making 40 grand or 50 grand a year.
Yeah.
Avoid that. I mean, do that math, know about that math before you even go ahead and get involved. Because if your plan is to go to a 4-year school and end up spending 200 to 300 grand to get your degree, knowing that you're going to come out and make 40 or 50 grand with, you know, maybe a 401k offering and maybe some other benefits and not have a growth opportunity and not have an upside. Because look, growth opportunity and upside opportunity are great. That's everything. So it's okay to start off low in salary if you've got growth and future upside. But if you really know the trajectory and you're going to be at 40, 50,000 and maybe you'll get to 56 and maybe you'll get to 59 and maybe over 10, like, it's not a good ROI.
Yeah, no, totally.
So it's no wonder why the coders are getting the high paying jobs. It's no wonder why the scientists and the engineers are getting the high paying jobs, 200 grand, 250, whatever, because they're making an investment in college that they then can come out, they're getting paid a lot, and that machine's going to continue to churn. But you know it's not going to churn? Spending a lot of money, not to get a lot of money back. Those days are over. I'm not worried for society because I think people are going to figure it out and pivot, and they're going to know how to run their financial life a little better. But I think so many people, George, over the past 30 to 50 years got sucked into this, let's go to college, let's borrow to go to college, and we'll come out and we'll have a job and something that we're passionate about and something that we like. And they make not enough money to pay for their life in their place of choice where they live. And if it's a city, forget about it. And they do that for 15 or 25 years. God forbid it's 25 years. And then they wake up on year 25 and they're like, holy shit, this sucks. This isn't great. I don't have much. I don't have anything to show for it. I have no savings. I have no investments. I've got this 401k. Just got fucking hammered from the pandemic, from the crash, the cycle. I mistimed it. Holy shit. What do I do? You don't want to find yourself 15, 25 years out of school. So that puts you at like, you know, late 30s and approaching 50 with like not a whole lot to show except a job, which, by the way, if you say or do the wrong thing, you can get fired from or canceled at any moment. I digress. Sorry. But like, you know, you got to have stuff to show. You have to have it. You have to have milestones to show for your dedication, time, and investment into your career. If college enables that to happen in a more economically favorable trajectory, by all means, consider college. But really do the math before you go to school and before you make the investment in college, and figure out what your likely range of salary is when you get out in your chosen field, in your chosen area of degree studies. And if that's going to be a good ROI, please, I beg everybody, get hip to this, man. Do the analysis now. Don't blindly go into college thinking like, oh, it's great, I'll party, I'll meet boys and girls, and there's sports games, and we'll go to the games every weekend, and rah, 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 and you know, I'll change majors, or I won't, or like figure out what the economics of your life are likely to be when you graduate, because that's really going to impact a lot of people's decisions going into college. I beg you all, do that math.
Yeah, if it's a ball game you're looking for, it's going to be a very expensive ball game.
That can be a very expensive ball game.
I wanted to talk about, a few weeks ago, we talked about Amazon taking, like, I think it was like a third of the steel for warehousing.
Yeah, a third of the steel. Well, we did talk about that.
Yeah.
What's your question, though? I'm psyched to see where this is going.
No, just that now things are cooling down a little bit.
We've heard things, different messaging, right?
Yeah, so I was curious what you thought about that.
So we did this piece where we talked about how Amazon was taking 1/3 of the domestic steel supply to build out warehouse and distribution centers.
Yeah.
And did we post that one yet? Maybe we could put it up right now just to give people a little blip. So this is what we talked about. How do you get involved? Are you just going to sit back and talk about it? Not only has Amazon disrupted retail across the whole entire world, but they're disrupting construction now. So what's happening is 1/3 of our country's steel supply is going to Amazon. They're building so many warehouses and so many distribution facilities that they need all of the building materials they can get their hands on and all of the labor and contracting services they can get their hands on. Now, here we are, fast forward a month later, and we hear that Amazon's announcing that they're pulling back, they're halting construction, they're halting new development, new contracts for development, and they're putting the brakes on. And what does that mean? So some of that steel that they were contracted to use is going to come back into the general marketplace. So we might see some steel price pressure easing. Amazon still is going to need these facilities. They're still going to occupy them and put them into commerce at some point.
Yeah.
But right now, because they're slightly overbuilt on their warehouse and distribution square footage, they're going to take a halt. We're in a recession. The numbers are different now. Interest rates are higher now. Consumer behaviors and patterns and purchasing patterns are different now. So they're saying, all right, well, we don't need all this stuff. We're going to put the brakes on. So they're going to sit on these properties. They're going to sit on construction contracts, materials and inventory for construction. They're going to sit on that for, I don't know, 2 or 4 quarters, and then they're going to start back up again whenever it is, if it's 4 quarters or even after. But whenever it is that the economic conditions are right for them to green light this, they'll put the pedal to the metal again, and they'll start going with the deployment of steel and other materials into these properties. But for now, they're pulling back. So it's just interesting how quickly things change.
Yeah.
We read a report and had a discussion about how Amazon single-handedly is making up 1/3 of the domestic U.S. steel consumption. And then we're talking about how they're going to put on the brakes. So everything's tied together. Everything impacts everything. Yeah. Look, 1/3 of the U.S. steel consumption is a lot of consumption.
Yeah, significant. Yeah.
So I expect steel prices to come down. Even in this inflationary environment, I expect steel prices to come down because that was part of what the supply chain logjam was creating high steel prices because no one could get any steel because Amazon had it all.
It's all connected.
Now that's all going to come back to the consumers. Steel prices, I think we're going to see, are going to ease a little bit. And Amazon will get back to building out these facilities at some point. Maybe not this quarter, maybe not next quarter. But keep an eye on it. When consumer confidence starts to increase, when the VIX index starts to recover, when consumers start to purchase more and Amazon starts to sell through a lot of this inventory that they have in their existing warehouse structures, they're going to go full force on all of these distribution and warehouse buildings that they have tied up all over the world. And you're going to see a massive expansion of their footprint.
Yeah, the Amazon
and then expect steel prices to go up again.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. From our many conversations on this podcast, I know you care a lot about design. And that's something that we've talked about a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Are there design choices or materials or different aspects of that have changed over time for you, or maybe ones that have stayed really consistent all the way through your career?
I like this question.
Yeah.
I'm always looking at my design schemes for my developments, my apartments, my lobbies and common areas. I want it to look fresh. I want it to look modern. I don't want it to look old and tired and dated. And George, most of our buildings, as you know, are historic buildings built some in the 30s and 40s, some in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Those aren't really historic, but they're vintage.
Yeah.
And they require a lot of updating, which we do. So I'm always thinking about how to update them to make them look current. Mm-hmm. But then a few years go by, what do you have after? Do they still look current after a few years?
Right.
So, I was going hard with lots of seashell grays and seashore grays, lots of white, gray floors, certain few types of lighting fixtures. Yeah. And now you see that we're exploring designs for the first time in ever, really. We're exploring brass fixtures, brass hardware. That's a fresh new look. It's making a comeback. Subway tile is always great. It's always in style. George, we're using a lot of big patterns. Sometimes we'll take one wall in a space and we'll put a big pattern wallpaper on it, very colorful, very large pattern, just the one wall.
Kind of like an accent wall.
Yeah, we're doing that now, which is really nice. It looks very expensive. It's not expensive to execute, but it adds a great taste and a great sense of elegance and sophistication to whatever room or space you're developing. I love the use of wall sconces, certain types of wall sconces, not all of them. Again, modern ones. Think French antique, turn of the century, 20s and 30s European antiques. Again, lots of brass, lots of opaque lampshades. Soft light is very much a part of our design schemes right now. So another thing that we're doing, in addition to having one wall with big patterns of wallpaper, we're also choosing one wall to do a high gloss paint job on. So we'll take a center wall of a room or a prominent wall of a room, and we will pick a color. We'll give it a piano finish. A piano finish is a very thick, high gloss finish.
Yeah.
and it's very, very striking. I mean, it really jumps out. It's not very expensive to do, but you see this type of thing done in very, very high-end expensive homes and interior spaces where people pay a lot of money for the world's best interior designers and artists to come in and do these things.
Yeah.
I'm giving this to you guys for free right here. Try it in your next renovation. Try it in your next space. Pick like a center wall or a prominent wall in the space and do a piano finish on it and see what you get. It's so cool, and you can hang art on it. Your tenants will love the flexibility and the diversity and the visual flow of the space, so it's really good. And another thing I like to do is do custom measured carpets and runners for a space. So if I have a hardwood floor situation, maybe I'll put in a runner. You could just get a basic wool carpet. It doesn't have to be an expensive carpet, but have it custom measured and custom cut so that it's got a runner feel to it. So it's only covering a part of the space, and you've got exposed wood floor underneath still poking out. If you've got an odd shaped room that's not a perfect square, you could do a custom cut of a rug or carpet in that room, again, leaving some border around the edges where the natural floor pokes out, but you're covering the center of the floor. And because it's an odd-shaped room, you can obviously tell that the floor covering was custom measured and custom prepared for this room. It's a little bit more money. It's not that much more money, and it's a great bang for the buck.
Yeah. The through line seems to be a lot of intention, that it's one of those things that the intention comes across as a tremendous amount of value, even if it's not super expensive.
Look, guys, here's a secret I'm going to give you. You're not going to hear it anywhere else, but I want to share it with you because you're all doing it anyway. But in this world where we live in, where people don't really gain a lot of expertise or a lot of experience in a certain thing, they just go consume it or borrow it from an Instagram account, or they go to YouTube and they watch a video one time and they think that they're experts, right? We're all doing that.
Yeah.
Do this. Find a few great interior designers on social media or architects and builders and follow them and see the kinds of elements that they post that they're doing in their really high-end homes, in their really high-end spaces. I mean, you can find listings on Redfin or Zillow, and you could find interior designers and real estate brokers that are advertising luxury homes for sale. Guys, there's ways and so many places to see photographs of very expensive homes that most people would never be able to have access to inspect or go inside and really look around. Look for this stuff, and you can start to see similarities and a common thread between all of them. And I promise you're going to get ideas for your space, for your home, for your office, wherever it is. But some of these things, many of them are not expensive to do in your space, and they're very easy to do, and you just have to have the mind for it. Don't do the same old thing. Stand out, have a point of difference. If you're finding that you can't get an idea on your own, go look it up. I mean, we're all borrowing from each other in culture anyway, right? That's what happens every day in the arts and in business and in competitive landscape. So look and follow some real great tastemakers and some great artists and architects and designers. See what they're doing. Give it a shot. Do it yourself.
You just mentioned the social media component, and you've said before about how so many people within the quote-unquote real estate sphere on social media are full of shit.
Oh, business in general.
Business in general, yeah.
Real estate, investors. Everyone's an investor. If you look on Instagram, every 18-year-old to 29-year-old is an investor. It says it right there in their profile. I'm like, oh, what do you invest in? Yeah, I bought 1/100th of Bitcoin. It doesn't make you an investor.
Right, exactly. And some of them I think are actually malevolent, but I think others are just ignorant and just kind of feel like, well, I actually never learned the fundamentals, but I can sell myself this way. What are the fundamentals of business? What were you going to say?
I'm so glad you're asking me that. Well, it's a pet peeve.
Yeah.
Business and investing is a lot of things. Chief among them, it's a formula. There's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
If you want to be an investor, there's a right way to learn how to be an investor. Sure, you need experience, but you also need exposure to some of the basic fundamental principles. So if you're an investor, if you're going to start a business, I mean, I don't care what you're doing. If you're just putting money with someone, or if you're going to go be the person that's leading a business and deploying capital into a business, it's really all the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be a business plan. There's got to be an identification of the market size. What problem are you solving with your product or service? You know, you have to be able to clearly and very concisely answer these questions. George, Every business, every investment should have available for review the capital stack. Every business or investment or company should have available for review balance sheets, cash flow statements, and income and expense statements. I mean, period. That's just standard stuff. Every one of these investments or companies should have available for review a sources and uses of funds chart. There should be an explanation of risks and a SWOT analysis. If you don't know what a SWOT analysis is, Google it, look it up.
Yeah.
But you should be able to understand what the competitive landscape is and what the risks are of this industry. There should be an explanation of the budget, broken down in detail. What's the line item of how the money in the capital stack and sources and uses is going to get spent? There should be a very basic description of the team, what their background is, photographs of these people, their work titles, their job descriptions, their experience. I mean, people want to know who's driving the ship. Make it known, make it transparent. What are the barriers to entry for yourself and for others to come into the business and cause you a hard time? You know, if it's a low barrier to entry business, you may want to think twice about investing in it or starting up a company in that industry. And you know, George, I have to always tell people, look at the regulatory environment, look at the political landscape. Is the location where you're going to invest or open up a business ripe for business? Is it pro-business? Is it pro-investment? Is it pro-development? Or are there lots of restrictions? Are the local and state governments very restrictive and lots of red tape and lots of bureaucracy? Because those things are impediments to progress and investment. So you have to really know locationally where you're deploying your capital and your time, resources for an investment or for a business. Guys, you got to understand all this stuff. And without being able to speak articulately and confidently about all these things that I'm just listing for you here now, you don't really know what you're doing and don't invest. Yeah. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, find an expert, an absolute GOAT, and put your money with them, partner with them, intern with them for free, paid, whatever. But you see what I'm saying? Yeah. You got to gain the ability to check all of these boxes. Without knowing all of these things that I'm talking about, you can't invest successfully. Investing and growing businesses, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There's no magic bullet. These are the basic fundamentals, the basic things that every investment, every business, every company has to have. You have to be able to identify these things, talk about them with the founders and owners, talk about them with customers and suppliers, talk about them with investors. Come on, you're not going to raise any money from investors yourself if you can't talk about these things. Right. I see so many people out there looking for investments and trying to invest, and when they ask very basic questions like, what's the sources and uses chart? What's the capital stack? What's the competitive landscape? You know, they don't get answers, yet they're expected to invest or miss the opportunity. Guys, I'll say no thanks and I'll miss that opportunity all day long. If you can't share with me and look me in the eye and convince me that you know about this whole list of things that I just mentioned, we'll just invest another day or with someone else or not at all. But I'm not going to invest with you in that opportunity because it's not an opportunity if you can't tell me about all these basic things. And they are basic. Yeah. So if you want to be in the game, get schooled and get educated and learn about how to talk about these basic things. Please don't invest your own money or someone else's or seek investment from someone else unless you can create a whole articulate dialogue about what the capital is being used for and what the market breakdown is, what the marketing and the competitive and risk analysis is. Guys, you got to know all that stuff. It's investing in business 101. It's not advanced. It's basic stuff. Anybody and everybody who's successful at business knows these things. If you want to be successful at business too, you have to know them as well.
I came across this quote that I sent you because it reminded me of one of our videos, the What Sucks Worse video.
Being disciplined sucks. You know what else sucks? Regret. You know what else sucks? Failure and giving up.
And then you mentioned that you came across this same quote. Like,
I saw it just this morning.
Yeah, that's so crazy. So this isn't really a question. I was just going to, read it and then see if you had any thoughts about it. But we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret or disappointment. And that's from Jim Rohn.
Yeah, I tell you what. So for me, I'd much rather suffer the pain of discipline than the pain of regret. The pain of regret is immeasurable and it's permanent. The pain of discipline is short-term sacrifice for what you hope will be a long-term benefit and you hope will yield fruit and results. And if you stay with it, it will yield fruit and results. And then there's no pain at that point. So, the pain of discipline, it may suck at the beginning. It may suck a little bit down the road. It may suck a little longer down the road. But at some point, you morph the suck into success. And, I can live with that, and I'm in control of that, man. If I want to get to the success faster, I just get disciplined more. But if I have regret, it kills me. Look, if you're the kind of person that can live with regret and shoulda, coulda, woulda, God bless. I can't, and every successful person I know can't. Like, that's why they're successful. They can't live with the regret, and they can't live with I should have done this, or I wish I would have done that. They just go out and do it. The second they identify that they should have done something, they go out and do it. That's the difference, man. So, for me, pain of discipline all day long, 24/7, no problem.
Transform the suck into success.
Yeah.
That's the zinger for today. Yeah, that was good.
Thanks.
So before we move on to Q&A, I do actually have one Zest Quest.
I love it. Hit me with a zest.
Just for the hell of it. I was thinking about this today. What's the first thing you tend to think or do in the morning? The first thing, you wake up.
It's different every day.
Yeah.
What I think about the dreams that I had as soon as I become conscious. I think about my to-do list, and if I'm late for it, and if I'm going to be able to accomplish my to-do list and get on my agenda for the morning with enough time. So I get a little anxious. And maybe the anxiety goes away in a minute once I look at my calendar and be like, oh yeah, I got this, no problem. That's only very short-lived. And then immediately I go to what does my family need and what's the family schedule, and I get to that stuff. My daughter's got to get up, get dressed, get to school. That's my job.
Yeah.
And I love that. Think maybe 5 to 10% about what I have to do for the day first thing in the morning, but then I focus on the family for the next couple of hours or hour, whatever it is, and then I get to my stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what I got today. Do you have anything?
Was that zesty enough for you?
That was plenty zesty. That was a lot of lemon zest on there.
I am reading a wild book right now.
Oh yeah.
It's called Recessionary: The Death of Free Speech by David Mamet.
Interesting. Oh yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Well, I went to theater school, so David Mamet is a big deal in theater school.
So
yeah.
The guy has an incredible command of the English language.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
The book, not light reading. Let's just say that. I mean, this is not like an easy,
right.
Weekend read on a bench outside. This is like, I have to do it in audiobook and in small digestible bites because it's intense stuff.
Is he reading it? Do you know?
Well, he has someone reading it. It's not him that's reading it.
Yeah.
I don't know who the person is who's
he doesn't
it.
Pull his punches. He's pretty aggressive.
But I find the concept of the death of free speech really interesting right now in our point in time and where we are in life and our world.
Yeah.
It's something that I've been interested in and reading about and indexing towards for maybe the past 10 years. What we're seeing now, so I'm reading this book, and you've probably seen the stories coming out of various universities. Princeton University with Professor Katz, who was canceled for things that he said and did. And big controversy. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you guys to read about it, and read about it from different sources too, so you get all the perspectives. Recently, even this week, we read about another professor at another Ivy League university who got canceled for something that they tweeted. It was their opinion. What they thought was factually correct, but it used certain language and it had a point of view that maybe people didn't like, and so people came out and canceled this person.
Now, I'm curious, when you use the word canceled, I just want to be careful, because canceled can mean so many things.
It can mean, so let me, that's fair. So let me elaborate. So at Georgetown, this new professor got hired, a law professor, and he tweeted about how Joe Biden missed the boat with his Supreme Court nomination. I forget the exact phrase that he used, but he tweeted that.
It was the consequence of firing, or a
the consequence was a suspension until pending investigation, and it was highly publicized, and everybody chimed in. And the guy said, you know what, screw this. I don't want to work here anymore. So whatever you find in your investigation, I'm out.
Right.
And, he was the subject of hate mail, hate comments. You can imagine everybody, supporters came out, haters came out, and all this stuff. So really what it made me think of was, I'm reading this book about the death of free speech, and then I'm also reading about very recent, yesterday, current events where there appears to be a death of free speech consistently among our college campuses and universities, especially the elite ones. And it's a shame, it's a shame. When Elon Musk, when the story broke about him buying Twitter, it was all about free speech, right? We read a lot about free speech and how Elon Musk wants to promote free speech because he feels like these social media conglomerates control a lot of speech, and they're preventing Donald Trump from being on Twitter, and they're Facebook is censoring who comes on and what they say. It's a tough road. I'm very pro free speech. And I think that I may not agree with you and I may hate what you say, but if it's within the law, I may disagree with you, but I will defend your right to say whatever it is you have to say.
Yeah.
And I think that is so critical to our world and society, and to see the examples of erosion of that is really painful for me. And to see these colleges and universities, just in these couple of examples that I just said, really be the arbiters of the death of free speech, it's tough. I mean, I remember reading a story about UC Berkeley a few years ago where someone was coming onto campus to do a speech, and the students were throwing chairs through the glass windows at the auditorium, and there was fires so that the event didn't happen. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think a difficult part of this is the rise of not just social media, but just the internet in general, that everything's out there. And so
everybody's got an opinion, and they think that they have a voice to state that opinion.
Yeah, and not only that, but now there's so many more forums available to talk about what it even means to be free speech. So like in the past, it was really just, you show up and you say what you want either on the street in a protest or freedom of press. And that was what free speech was. But now the question becomes, okay, well now on Twitter, if Twitter is a private company, are they now allowed to condemn things that they own? They own the product.
It's
so
tough.
Is that actually free speech? Because that's not a governmental entity. That's a
well. How about if you can lose your
company.
job if you say what your opinion is on something?
Yeah.
Is that free speech?
Yeah, and that seems to be where it starts to feel really like actual cancel culture. Because I heard this thing recently. Ezra Khan said how oftentimes we call cancel culture is really criticism culture. It's a heavy, fierce.
I appreciate the distinction, and I'm happy you said that.
Yeah, but every once in a while, people do actually get canceled, and they do get fired, or they do have loss of financial gain, and that's a problem.
You know what you get if people then develop a fear for being canceled or fired or shut down. They're just not going to say anything.
Right? Yeah, they don't change their opinion.
And when you don't say anything, you let the entities that control our society be the ones that dictate our lives.
Yeah.
Like there's I mean, it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, I think that's the huge danger of criticism culture, I should say, is that the well-meaning people tend to back off, and then the people who don't give a shit and we're going to be racist or sexist or whatever anyway will end up talking and saying the thing they want to say anyway. So,
and I find that people more than ever are interpreting things that they read or hear that others say and concluding that it was racist or offensive or something when it really wasn't, but like they went down that path and connected some dots and made it a thing. And
or ignoring intention. That's a big thing.
Ignoring intention. Look, we all know that a big part of our legal system is establishing intent. It's tough. It's tough to see. I think everybody should be able to voice their opinion. I don't agree with what everyone says, and you don't either. And not everyone's going to agree with what I say. But our right to say it is so paramount and fundamental to our existence in this country. And it's so scary for me to see criticisms and cancellations and people losing their careers and jobs. And we talk about how divisive we are. I mean, this is one of the things that's very divisive. If you don't think like me, you're a bad person. If you don't agree with me, you're the asshole. And people really get hurt. Like businesses, entrepreneurs that are starting businesses, offering products and services are getting criticized and cancels, and there's meme accounts for
attacking businesses.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The internet's a big part of that because it's so easy to have a voice now when maybe we didn't before the internet. Like there's so many different ways to voice opinions. Look, again, if I'm doing something you disagree, engage in a discussion. Let's talk about it. Let's. I'm open. I know that not everybody is, and maybe you think that I'm not open, but I think I'm open to a dialogue and discussion about all sorts of different things. And, that's where we don't get divided. That's where we actually come together. And at the end of it, you may not agree with me and I may not agree with you, but man, we had a really intelligent adult conversation about it. I really appreciate that. I see so many young people today, they have these opinions, and then you say, well, tell me, why do you have that opinion? Crickets, man. There's not a whole lot of education, of self-awareness, of facts behind how it is they got to form the opinion that they have. People shouldn't shame, or people shouldn't do this, or people shouldn't do that. And I'm like, oh, why do you feel that way? Oh, just because they shouldn't, that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the response I get. And I'm like, well, can we talk about it a little more? Like, what is there something that happened that made you, why are you asking me? Do you not, are you a Republican? Are you a Trumper? Like that, I've gotten that sometimes.
No, yeah.
Like people just don't have the aptitude, the intellect, the skill set to have a conversation. And I think that that's an important skill set to have.
Yeah, my dad and my brother both were communications majors, and we all kind of make fun of that. I was an acting major, so, we're all kind of making fun of like, oh, we got degrees that don't really mean anything. And yet now in 2022, I look around and I say, wow, maybe people really needed to take these communication courses.
They needed to take them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They need to read. They need to... And read multiple points of view. Read your conservative media, your liberal media, your neutral media, whatever. Like, read it all, because that's where you're going to get the things that will help you form a real opinion that connect to you and resonate with you deeply. Like, without you being exposed to these facts and consuming this information, you're just going to be creating opinions based on like emotional reaction or like...
And so attached to the identity.
Social fitting in, or like, you feel this way because all your friends feel that way. So to fit in, you're going to feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. We do so much of that. And I'd love to see people form opinions based on really how it impacts them, their community, their family, their health, their wealth, their well-being. Run analyses, read the informations, run the numbers. Like, what's good for you? What's your opinion on that?
And what's this is the other thing. What is actually your opinion as opposed to the opinion that you heard that you agree with? I think that part, and I'm super guilty of this too. I think we all are, that we often think, oh, that's what I think, when it's actually not what you think. It's what you were told, and then you were like, that sounds the smartest.
It's
that's
what
I'm
you
going
were
to go
told
with.
to think,
and
whether you knew it or not.
Yeah, and I don't even mean that in like a conspiracy theory. Somebody brainwashed you. It's just that
it's
a lot of times
conspiracy.
We're not thinking for ourselves. A lot of times we're just saying, that sounds good, I'm going to say that.
Look at Hollywood. Look at the marketing and advertising that we consume every day on social media, on the radio, on Sirius XM, on TV, on Netflix. We get advertising. We get messaged to. Yeah. And all of the messaging, we've talked about this, George, all the messaging has an agenda. It comes from somewhere. It's designed to make us think a certain way, to purchase a certain product, to consume a certain lifestyle. So it's all designed for us to give them the result that they want. I promote us giving a result that we want, and maybe it's good for some corporations and entities, and maybe it's good for certain groups of people, but whatever it is, it's coming from us. It's from what we want, what's good for us. I always appreciate people that can think independently outside of the system of messaging that we get bombarded with every day and come up with their own thoughts and ideas and concepts. Where can you go to have open dialogue free from repercussions and consequences? Where can you go? Can you do it in your family? Can you do it in your peer group, in your work group? It's tough. Your work group, like, you don't want to like shake the tree at work, and your friends you can do it with. I think your family, I don't know, maybe hopefully. But like, it's tough. It's tough to find safe places. I'm here. It's tough to find the venues where you can have these conversations free of consequence. And it's so important. This is how we're going to become a stronger society who's not divided, who's actually coming together. I love having dialogue with people that disagree with me. I want to hash stuff out. I want to talk about it. Do you want to talk about stuff, or do you just want to shut stuff down? Like, George, I had a conversation with someone recently who was close to me, so it really hurt the way this conversation went. Well, I said to that person, why do you feel that way? They didn't know. They said, Peter, like that. That was the reaction. I'm like, what do you mean, Peter? Like, I want to learn. Tell me why you feel that way. I'm ending this conversation. Picked up the cell phone, started like pretending to, or actually, screw around on the phone, and then got up and walked away.
Yeah.
I mean, no ability to engage, no substance. All it was criticism and judgment, and no conversation occurred.
Yeah.
It was very tough,
Yeah.
and it hurt me because it was a person who's close to me in my life, and I have a lot of love for this person. But I was so disappointed that they weren't able to engage on any level, not even on a meaningful level, but there was no conversation.
Yeah.
It was like, you don't think like me? Fuck you. I'm out of here.
Yeah, their identity was so wrapped up in the thing they couldn't.
Tough,
see
man.
it. Yeah.
And so
So Recessionary.
Recessionary,
Yeah.
The Death of Free Speech by David Mamet. It's, you're going to need a drink after you read it. I get through a few chapters at a time, and I'm like, holy shit, I need a...
I'm gonna have to check this out because I'll
Need a
send you,
massage.
after you're done with this, I'll send you Oleana, which is one of his plays back in the day. And I'm pretty sure this is probably why he's writing this book, is he wrote a bunch of plays like this, but Oleana was the act one. It wasn't at a university. He was a professor and a student, and they have an interaction. And you leave during act one and you think one thing, and then the second act, they have another interaction where the roles completely switch in terms of power dynamics. And so at the end of the show, inevitably everyone was arguing about who was right and who was wrong. And so he's been in the middle of this for a long time.
Well, I'll tell you what about David Mamet, because I'm not a historical reader or fan of his. I've just recently come to know his works through this book. Incredible command of the English language. Whether you like his point of views or not, he has an incredible knowledge base. I mean, he has historical references. He brings in shit from the 1700s and the 1600s and 2000 BC, and he sort of gives you the evolution of how it got from then to now and why we're in the world that we're in now. And he makes these conclusions and he cites these historical references. He's very well read. He knows poets, playwrights, journalists. He cites a lot of sources and references, and it's pretty impressive. So just from reading his book, I can see that he's put a lot of time in the research to sort of weave it all together and tie it all together, which is, I think it's a very tough thing to do. So I don't know how long it took him to write this book and complete it, but it struck me as something that would take me a lifetime to do, because there was so many different places he pulled information from and examples from to cite his stories and his points. Really interesting stuff, but not light reading, and you feel like you just got out of a boxing match with Mike Tyson when you're finished.
Yeah. Also, I just realized, there's a real estate connection too with Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yes, I know. I was going to save that for next week.
Yeah.
But yes.
Brass balls to sell real estate.
You know what it takes to sell real estate? It takes brass balls to sell real estate. Go and do likewise, gents.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Peter, and I'll
Thanks,
see you over
George.
at Q&A.
Thanks, everybody.
Our Q&A today is from Jordan Daniels.
Let's hear it from Jordan.
Jordan says, I'm trying to improve my skills as a manager. How do you decide for yourself when to be more hands-off or to micromanage on any given project involving your team?
Listen, Jordan, I micromanaged for so long. I felt like nothing would get done unless I did it myself. I felt like I had to do everything, and when I did it, my team could see me doing it, and maybe it'd be a learning experience for them. I micromanaged everything for a long, long time. Look, it's part of my recipe as to how I got to where I am, but looking back, Jordan, I gotta tell you, micromanaging was holding me back, really. Really what I had to learn was how to delegate, how to hire great people, trust great people to do a great job, and focus on what's on my to-do list, what's in my job description. So I learned that over time, but at the beginning, and for many, many years after the beginning, it wasn't like that, Jordan. I was micromanaging the bejesus out of everything, and it's a common thing that people will do, because as entrepreneurs, we feel like it's our thing, it's our baby, we have to do it. If we don't do it, it's not gonna get done. How are we gonna teach someone to do what's innately embedded in our DNA, that kind of thing? And I worked like that for a long time, and it meant long, long days and long hours and long weeks, because I was not only doing my job, but I was micromanaging and doing the job of everybody else as well. But people get tired of that, they get burned out, and you learn with maturity and experience how to be really, really good at hiring a great team and identifying talented people, and you get really good at letting them do their thing. So Jordan, now I rely on great people to help me and to explain to me what's happening. I give advice and I make comments when needed in certain key areas, and I really run my businesses based off of weekly and daily and monthly reporting that I get, so I can see the numbers, and I'm really managing based off of numbers and making decisions based off of reporting that I'm getting, because the numbers really tell the story. As you know, you can't manage what you don't measure. Jordan, I'm measuring everything, including my team that I'm delegating to. So learn how to build a good team, learn how to build rapport with people, learn how to find great people, and empower them to do the job that you hired them to do. A lot of business owners and entrepreneurs don't empower their team to do the very thing that you went out and did the search for and interviewed all these people for, and then you're all up their ass every day and in their grill every night. You got to empower the people to do the very thing that you hired them to do. Get good at that, and you'll become great at the macro and the micro, but don't micromanage too much, because people can't take it, and it's going to be a grind for you and for them.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much, Peter, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, George.